Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Batken in Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan is located in Central Asia. You can see we're going to talk a lot about Kyrgyzstan's borders tonight, but you can see that the country borders Kazakhstan up here. But our region tonight, we're going to talk about the borders with Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. It also borders China over here. Just not the region, the country. Our region borders Tajikistan and Uzbekistan very famously. We're going to talk a lot more about that in depth in a minute. But let's cover some basic geography first. Batken is the southernmost province of Kyrgyzstan. It is dominated by the Pamir Range, which if you think of the Himalayas, where they're located in India, Nepal, etc., the Pamirs are pretty much as far north in that Himalaya region as you can get. And the chain that runs through Batken is known as the Alai Mountains. You can see right there. The Alai Mountains pretty much dominate like this whole chunk here. Apparently the nickname for the mountains here is Asian Patagonia. So if you've seen pictures of beautiful Patagonia down in Argentina, you can imagine what the mountains look like here. You won't have to imagine soon because we're going to head over to Google Earth later to look at pictures of these gorgeous mountains here. The most famous mountain being, I wonder if I can find it on here. Oh, it's over here. Lenin Peak, which we'll talk a bit about. Let's see. Oh, we're also in parts that aren't mountainous in the Fergana Valley, which is also considered a very beautiful haven in this mountainous region of Central Asia. It's very fertile, very lush and green. Reminds me a lot of kind of like Switzerland in a way, in that it's this beautiful lush green flowers, cows and things surrounded by huge snowy mountains. It's very picturesque. And right smack dab in the middle of the Fergana Valley is the town of Batken. Here, at a mountain nearby, you can find the Aigul flower, which only grows in this region of Kyrgyzstan and only grows or blooms, I should say. It only blooms for like 1 week out of the year in the springtime, and it takes a long time for this flower to grow and mature for it to bloom. I pulled up some pictures over here on Google Images to show you what this flower looks like. Isn't that stunning? It is so orange. It is like as orange as you can imagine anything can be. It's extremely orange. And they're a very rare flower associated with romance. There's of course a legend, which is quite typical of like kind of mountainy flowery legends, where the princess's betrothed warrior was slain, and as she cried, her tears turned into the flowers. It's strange how you find these stories all over the world, right? But it's very beautiful, and there's a whole season dedicated to these flowers in the springtime, and it's very expensive if you want to pick these flowers. I wouldn't recommend doing that. They charge you way too much for flower picking. And since it's such a rare flower, you shouldn't be picking that anyway, in my opinion. All right, let's talk about these exclaves. So there are 6 exclaves belonging to Tajikistan and Uzbekistan in this province. You can only really see 3 of them on this map because the other 3 are very tiny. You can see this one here's one of the bigger ones, and I'm going to mispronounce it. I know I have Kyrgyz viewers, and I think I have some Tajik viewers. So, and I do have some Uzbek viewers. I know that for sure. So let me know down in the comments how to actually pronounce this, because in English you'd pronounce that as socks. That can't be how it's actually pronounced. But that is this large area here. You can see this area over here is called Shahimardan, belongs to Uzbekistan. And then we have, make sure I highlight it correctly, it's so small, right here. This is Voruk, and it belongs to Tajikistan. And we're going to talk a lot about this exclave in modern history and about why these even exist. Why are there dots? There's like a tiny one up there. There's tiny ones around the border here. We'll get into it. Let's start off with some of the history here, which was kind of hard to find. I did find lots of information on Kyrgyz tourism websites about the ancient cultures that lived here, but when I Googled that information, I didn't find anything else about it, just that one website. So I'll take their word for it. I'd believe it, that there are many different cultures throughout ancient times and leading into modern times. The only real solid information I found about settlement here was during the Kokand Khanate. The Kokand Khanate ruled this region from 1709 to 1876. And as you can imagine, that was, of course, a branch of other Islamic dynasties, most likely spawned from Mongol times. In 1876, it was absorbed by Russian Turkestan, so it pretty much became part of Russia at that point, and would stay part of Russia for a long time until the independence of Kyrgyzstan after the fall of the Soviet Union. Now, Russia, Imperial Russia, and the Soviet Union, particularly the Soviet Union, wanted all of their different SSRs, socialist republics, to be divided by ethnicity. So they wanted the Kyrgyz to have their own region. They wanted the Uzbeks to have their own region. They wanted the Tajiks to have their own region, the Turkmens. The list goes on. The Cossacks up here, The list goes on and on. There were many ethnicities in the Soviet Union. There's still a lot of ethnicities in just straight up Russia today. But some of them, most of them, declared independence after the fall of the Soviet Union. So the Soviets drew lines around towns that had a majority population of a certain ethnicity and said that part belongs to that ethnicity. But it becomes a lot more complicated when these countries declare independence, right? So these little exclaves you see here, these are part of Uzbekistan. This is part of Tajikistan. So once independence came for all three of these countries, they just tried to draw these borders as best they can, which is why they overlap so bizarrely. They fit like puzzle pieces, don't they? Tajikistan snaking over here, Uzbekistan snaking over here, Kyrgyzstan snaking this way. It's like a very convoluted puzzle. And that's because it was. There's many more exclaves all throughout this area here, because during Soviet times, these borders weren't like true borders, They were just kind of on a map, and you could go in and out and go wherever you wanted pretty much. It was all still the same country. Now it is not. Now it is a bit more complicated now that we have independence. I'm trying to carefully word this. How should I word this? I should have probably thought about how I'd word this while I was practicing. In Uzbekistan, in the 1990s, fresh off of independence from the Soviet Union, what is now Russia, a group sprung up known as the Islamist Movement of Uzbekistan, which, as you can guess by the name, was an extremist Islamic group. And they would launch a lot of attacks against others. There is a Muslim population here, but, some groups think it should be more extreme. And this group in the late 1990s would do some really terrible things, mostly to tourists who were just climbing the mountains in this region. They would come into the Alai Mountains down here, and they would kidnap tourists. They kidnapped some Japanese, some Americans, and it became an issue. So Kyrgyzstan was like, not on our soil. They're still very much like that today. Not on our soil. We are going to establish the Batken region to crack down on these people who are doing these international crimes. And that was how this province was founded in 1999. They did manage to crack down on this movement. Thankfully, nobody should get their mountain climbing trip ruined. But anyway, I left off that Batken was actually a new town. It was founded. I got lost right there. It was founded in 1934. So right in the heat of Sovietness, when Stalin was Stalining super hard. Probably established to build up more industry. And there was actually a very big industry in this region for a long time, for a couple hundred years before this. I also forgot to mention that there was silver in the mountains, and a large silver mining industry was sprung up here. It has apparently completely dried up. They've mined out all the silver, and that industry is no more. So yeah. Getting into modern history and what's been going on here recently, this has been a hotbed of activity in the worst way. So here you can see Voruk, which is part of Tajikistan. Wedged between this little peninsula of Tajikistan and Voruk here, there's a little bit of Kyrgyzstan, and that is a town called Aksai. And between Voruk and Aksai, there have been a lot of conflicts, mainly about water, the most important resource on Earth, and about who is going to fairly distribute this water between these regions. And it has become so heated that full-out violence would occur. And as this violence escalates, it's launched into pretty much wars between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. Very brief back and forths, but it's very warlike. It got really bad in 2021, and then right at the start of 2022, it got really bad with, bombs being flown across the border, innocent people in the middle of all of this. These two governments, soldiers ready to go deployed, and outside forces, I believe the Russians, because you know how much they love to interfere, especially in their old neighbors' business, would come in and talk them down, and it would calm down for about a year or so and then escalate back up. So as far as I can tell, the last escalation was in January 2022. And a lot of organizations have come in here to make sure that everyone is getting their fair share of water. We've got wells and water pumping where it needs to go so that this conflict can just settle down and be at peace, at least in that topic. There have been other conflicts about other things, mainly about Islam, because Kyrgyzstan has been cracking down on extremism. The problem with cracking down on extremism is that you might target people who aren't so extreme. Once you eliminate the extremists, the bar for extremism starts to lower. And people who aren't extremists get caught in the way, and the Uzbeks and Tajiks aren't fond of that. And it gets pretty sticky politically and religiously. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And that is essentially the history of the Batken region of Kyrgyzstan. Now I'm going to take you over to Google Earth so we can look at some stunning mountains, so I can actually show you some of these little towns here. And we gotta see Manas, because of course it's Kyrgyzstan. There's a super cool statue of Manas. If you have no idea who that is, stick around. Let's check it out. Here we are in the Batken region, which could be a bit hard to see in all these mountains. Let's start by zooming out so you can see exactly where we are in the world. So we are in Central Asia, a part of Asia that doesn't get talked about a lot. can see big old Russia up here. You can see big old China over here, big old India down here. And over here is the Stan countries, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, etc., and Kyrgyzstan. You can see what I mean when I was talking about the Himalayas, which is, of course, right here, the highest mountain range in the world. As you go up, there are other mountains that are kind of associated with it, but are their own thing. And you can see that the Pamir region pretty much stretches like out here, I believe. And then the range right here is the Alai range, which is so beautiful, isn't it? Let's see. Here's a mountain. Let's check it out. Beautiful horses. And see what I mean? Switzerland, right? Switzerland, eat your heart out. I'm going to adjust this a little bit higher so you can see a little better. There we go. It's gorgeous. Here, it kind of looks a lot more like Patagonia, doesn't it? All of the kind of arid trees, little waterfalls. Isn't that so charming? Mountain climbing here in the snow. And the big clouds. Isn't it gorgeous? It's so beautiful. Little village there. Oh, a big peak here. And sweet cows there by the stream. It's stunning here, isn't it? Come on. Load. There it is. Oh, we gotta see the wildflowers. Don't you want to run through that? It's spectacular. Yeah, lots of mountain climbing in this region. And lots of goat herding too, by the looks of it. So sweet. There are so many slideshows throughout these mountains. I'd highly encourage you to head over to whatever device you use Google Earth on. I assume you use Google Earth. It's free. You should check it out. And explore this region yourself and see some more stunning pictures here. So we gotta be careful because this region is small. You can see Voruk right here, and you can see how it's outlined because it is part of a different country, and you can see the other exclave right there in between. Oh, that's not the exclave, that's the actual country. It is such a puzzle, isn't it? And right between you can see the village of Aksai. At a very precarious place, isn't it? It really looks like, I bet you anything, that like this part is one ethnicity and this part is another. One is Kyrgyz, one is Tajik. I bet you anything. And yeah, you can see how it's wedged right between these borders here. So this is where a lot of the, especially the recent attacks have been happening. You can see this river coming right through here. And water is such a contentious issue because you needed to do anything, really. My goodness, you needed to cook, to clean, to drink. It's a lot. So it's a very important resource. I know when I lived in California, there were tons of debates about other states stealing our water, and it's still ongoing today. But that's a whole different story. Let's see, I promised you Manas. So here's Batken. You can see in part of the lush valley here. If you zoom out, you can really see the Fergana Valley and all of its glory there. Little pockets there between the mountains. So here we are in Batken. And now, anything I looked up about Batken, this is funny because whenever I look up tourist sites, they at least try to give you things to do. If there's nothing to do in the town, they'll be like, well, you should see the quaint architecture or check out this food. All the sources I found said, there's nothing here. Like, skip this town. It's pretty dull. Not much to do or see here. I've never seen a source that didn't have at least something. So I was coming through trying to find anything to look at, and the pictures are pretty terrible, probably because no one visits here. But I did find a statue of Manas, because we are in Kyrgyzstan, and there has to be a statue of Manas, the national hero of Kyrgyzstan. There he goes. Manas is the hero of the Epic of Manas, which is an epic poem about this hero. It's a very long poem, think Gilgamesh, but way longer. Think Beowulf, but way longer. It's along those veins. And the Kyrgyz people adore him and have statues of him everywhere. And he is a real point of pride in the country and the ethnicity in general. So if you're ever in town in Kyrgyzstan, in any town, you'll be able to find a statue of Manas and take a selfie with it. You kind of have to. All right. Let's see if there's one more thing we can check out before we end this video. Let's look at some more mountains. I mean, we got them. Let's see. Let's find a mountain to look at. I guess I should show you Mount Lenin. I'm not quite sure if Mount Lenin is part of this province because I saw some conflicting borders. I mean, it's this part of the world. But we'll take a look at it nonetheless. Of course, it was renamed during Soviet times. It was never called Mount Lenin. Why didn't it pop up when I typed in? Do I have to spell out Mount Lenin? It's not coming up. It's trying to take me to Leinster in Ireland. Well, that's not nice. Anyway, scratch that idea, I guess, unless I can find it. I guess there's this one. Oh, there's no pictures of this mountain. That's unfortunate. I think we already looked at that one. Yep. There has been a movement to rename. That's in Tajikistan. Ugh, it's so complicated. To rename Mount Lenin because it's called Mount Lenin. I mean, come on. But I don't think anyone can agree. Oh my gosh, how gorgeous! In the Batken region, we're good. We're golden. The current president wanted to name it to Mount Manas because, of course, but there's already a Mount Manas, so no one has any other good ideas, I guess. So Mount Lenin, it remains to this day. But nevertheless, that is all that I have to show you tonight. So thank you so much for watching. If you learned something new tonight, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Let me know what you learned down in the comments. I always love reading your comments. And if you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing. We're heading over to good old Turkey again. Yes, Turkey. Turkey just has way too many provinces. Let's start with A and B. We're going to Turkey a lot in the near future. In like the next year, we're hitting Turkey at least once a month, it feels like. But we're going to an interesting region because it is kind of a joke to geography nerds like me because it is spelled Batman. So yeah, you're gonna want to hear about it. Be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good night. Good night.